Greetings, dear ones. We've been asked on several occasions in the past as well as recently in a private message to provide a teaching to assist those who are struggling to develop their transgender voice. This video is very concise in its attempt to facilitate this much-needed change in your transition, and as such, it may only provide the background steps, as it were, in which work on your own will still be required for development. And as every one of us is different, these provided techniques may not work in your case. Needless to say, it took us many months to perfect the femininity of our voice. So after an hour of practice, despair setting in, envying your perceived mastery over my own voice will only create suffering. As we discussed in prior videos, all suffering is caused by desire. To start, let's clear up some outstanding myths that exist around the transgendered voice. Many people who have deep voices almost immediately decide that they will never have a feminine voice. This is a myth. Our voice, pre-transition, was the deepest range of the choralic music, the bass too. On an old recording device, we have a sample that we will play now.
What is the security concern for routing update? Accepting invalid routing updates.
Another myth is that the transgendered voice is developed with falsetto. This is quite silly, as falsetto has in its root false and will always sound exactly that, false. Another misconception that exists, mainly in the non-trans communities, but as we all start there, these ideas permeate in, and that is the notion that hormones change or aid the feminization of our voice, which is also untrue. Our voice was developed on testosterone, pre-hormone therapy, and has been perfected and maintained even though, once again, our body is producing testosterone. With these myths out of the way, it is now clear that anyone can have a voice like ours. Let's start by examining what makes a voice sound feminine. The first trait that popped into your mind was, it's a higher pitch. While in many cases this is true, a man who has a tenor voice still sounds like a man, and a woman who has an alto voice still sounds like a woman. The main difference? Women tend to enunciate their words more clearly and have a sharper consonant, especially that of the S and the T. So that brings us to the first exercise which we can work on in feminizing the voice. Try working with this silly phrase to work with the enunciations of the S and the T's. Sister Tantus tells the story of tomorrow. Really exaggerate the sounds to develop the ability to do this in conversation. Of course, when engaged in discussion with someone else, if we overdo it, we will sound silly. However, when we listen to ourselves talk, we are not getting a clear picture at all about what we actually sound like. Use of a tape recorder can greatly aid our practice. If you do not have one and would have to sacrifice to get one, it would be better not to. We did not have a tape recorder when we developed our voice. Instead, sit with your mouth a few inches from a wall, facing a corner if you can, so that way your voice is reflected back to your ears. After perfecting that, we can move on to the next step. This step deals with how we raise the pitch of the voice. Others will tell you to sing scales, straining to reach soprano notes. We respectfully disagree with this approach. Though one would assume we could sing the alto range with little difficulty, we have a hard time even hitting all of the tenor notes. In essence, our voice is actually a simple illusion that we will attempt to explain. Although it takes many months to master this technique, this result is indistinguishable from the genetic female voice and sounds many times better than taking the surgical route. We shall attempt to use an analogy to try to conceptualize this method. While it would make sense to say we are raising our voice, in essence, the opposite is true for this method. The higher we try to push the voice, the tighter we squeeze the larynx, and the less genuine the voice will sound. Instead, we allow the throat to become like we are about to speak deeply. But we do not allow the tongue and upper throat to fall. We reduce the amount of space in the mouth cavity, and thus the voice is transmuted and comes out sounding feminine. This is only the start. We need to constantly set goals for the voice until it habitually comes out feminine. This work is exhausting, and you will get sick of it. But we did not give up, because if we did, we would not be at this point. After raising the voice to some degree, we can initiate the final step, which is the dialectic behaviors, the way we choose and formulate our words. It is impossible to explain this, and thus it becomes the observation and synthesization step. Listening to astute and proper women replicating their proficiency with words, and thus enunciation, illusion, and replication are the 3 steps to the birth of the transgendered voice. Blessings, dear one.